Evolutionary.org Hardcore 2.0, episode number 10. Today we're going to do a lean and shredded for summer with Euro Pharmacies, fantastic brand. Let's first talk about comparing spring versus summer. So I'll start off with the US. Spring, it warms up pretty rapidly. We still get cold fronts. If you live in the northern half of the country, you still get cold fronts come through. A lot of severe weather if you live in the middle of the country, if you live in the south during the spring. So weather can kind of affect, hey, I'm going to go to the gym today. Oh, but wait, there's a severe thunderstorm watch, severe thunderstorm warning, a tornado watch. So there's a lot of things that can kind of affect during the spring. We get torrential downpours with some of these storms that come through. Sometimes, I've gone to the gym, and as soon as I get out of my car, my first step, boom, I step in a puddle. And then I'm like, oh my God, now I got to work out with soggy socks. So spring in a lot of the country, a lot of rain. So outdoors, you've got to kind of go around that. It's if you're planning on doing cardio outdoors, it can affect it. Then you get into the summer. And in the summer, it is hot. Last year, we had the hottest summer ever. This year, they're expecting to break even more records. Cardio, not safe in the middle of the heat. So what you do with cardio, if you want to do outdoor cardio, you're going to do outdoor exercise, you got to wake up early. You got to go do it early, okay? Right around sunrise. Now, you got bugs at night. The mosquitoes are going to eat you alive, especially those of you who live in the south. If you leave out west, it's not as much of an issue. It's much more drier climate. You don't have as much bugs. You live in the northeast, gets really cold during the winter, kills a lot of the bugs. You don't have much bugs. But if you live in the south, you got to deal with the bugs. So right around sunset, when the light comes out, mosquitoes hate the light. So that's when they kind of go away. So I like to do my cardio either right around sunrise or in the evenings once it starts cooling down. So let's say the sun sets around 8 o'clock. I'll go and do cardio around 7. That would be my my time. And I like to go do cardio too after a nice rainstorm. It cools it down. The air gets more humid, gets easier to breathe. It's not dry. The air is not so dry. And, I'd rather go run in a light shower than go run while the sun is blazing. So those are things you have to change during the summer when to adjust to that when it comes to that. Weight training, Mobster and I talked about on the pre-show, a lot of our gyms, they have air conditioners, they're franchise gym. But with that comes the fact that a lot of these franchise owners, they're looking to save. They're looking to penny pinch. Their margins are tight. So they won't put the air conditioner that low during the summer. If it's 95, 100, 110 degrees outside Fahrenheit, they can't afford to put the air conditioner less than 80 degrees or less than 77 degrees, right? So, it's going to be warm in the gym. It's going to be hot in the gym. And sometimes the air conditioner breaks. And it may take a week or two to fix the air conditioner. So all that, you got to adjust your workouts a little bit during the summer. Just be careful. Heat exhaustion is very important to keep hydrated. It's very important because if you don't, you can get heat exhaustion, you can get heat stroke. So Euro Pharmacies, they have some really, really good brands out there for cutting steroids that will be good for your summer cut. And we're going to go over that. We're going to go over which ones that Mobster and I love for getting lean and shredded for summer with Euro Pharmacies in this one. So, but it is very, very important. And we're going to get into it later as well. And we're going to talk about how our grocery habits can change during the summer because of availability of products. So we're going to get into training. We're going to talk about our favorite injectables. We're going to talk about our favorite orals. This is going to be a really great episode. So Mobster, tell us a little bit about UK summer, how your UK summer compares to spring when it comes to cutting.
We don't quite get the 115 degrees that Steve's talked about, although we've had a few times when we've been up in the 30s and 35s. So just a little bit short of 100 degrees. But it's not, I don't think we're talking about the Texas summers and some of the Midwest stuff that you guys get with the Dust Bowl and whatever else, Steve. But yeah, here's the thing, guys. It's all about adaptability. And some of us, we get stuck into this. It just general training. How many times have we seen guys talk about, oh, I get up at this time in the morning and I go to work at this time and I don't have time for breakfast. And I'll say stuff like, well, get up 15 minutes earlier. make up your bowl of cereal or whatever it is you're going to eat the night before. So what happens in the summer, guys? Versus, say, for example, we've had podcasts on this, you know, Steve, spring. Spring can be bright but fresh. And when we talked about spring cuts, we're talking about, you know, short sleeve shirts, shorts, and whatever else. But it's not the world's worst weather to train in. The world's worst weather is going to be absolutely freezing cold, Steve. So the depths of winter and the snow everywhere and blizzards and the absolute height of summer. I mean, if you're talking about 115 degrees, I would say, same as what I said when I was giving that advice earlier on, get up early. My local gym, for example, is open at 6:30. I think we actually experimented briefly 5 days a week at 6 o'clock. And the fella that does that, he's up at 4. And there's people waiting outside the gym at 6:30 in the morning, Steve. That is, to my mind, that would probably be the best time to train. And you will have to get up early, guys. Hell, go to bed early. Buy a fan for the house. Change gyms temporarily. If it's super, super hot, train at an air-conditioned gym. That's that. What about the change of habits? And we will talk about specifically the diet briefly. But it's just availability of certain foods here in the summer, and it's almost like a British tradition, Steve. Be absolutely great fruit to have when it's really, real hot because you're getting the extra moisture from the fruit. It's fresh at this time of year. So we go crazy over the strawberries, Steve. More, in fact, than we probably do over the citrus fruits like lemons and grapefruit and oranges and so on. So strawberries, very high in vitamin C, super hydrating, not crazy on the calories unless you're, as us British tend to do, having them with sugar and cream added as a special treat. But no, we can, in my local shop by me, Steve, you can buy a little meal deal, and the meal deal can include, if you wanted to, a little tray of melon and things like this. So watch the calories, guys, and make sure that your overall macros are the same. But I would be taking hydrating fruits, and I would have that with a little bowl of cereal, something like that, to get me to the gym first thing in the morning. Hydrate, hydrate, hydrate from the fruit. And this, you won't normally see me carrying a water bottle round like you see the young guys in the gyms. It's almost like a badge of honor. But in the summertime, Steve, I think that's the one time you'll see me with a little one of those bottles you can put on bikes, and I will have that in my pocket, even of my shorts. You're more likely to see me in vest and shorts. Hell, Steve, you'll even see me up on my fire escape gear sunbathing if I'm not down the beach with the girlfriend or whatever else. So here's the thing, guys. How they deal with the heat is different when it comes to a summer cut versus a spring cut. You're going to need to get up early. You need to hydrate. And let's be honest, even there are places in America that spring is warm. But when will you be stripped to the waist? When will the whole body be on show, Steve? It's going to be the summertime. So, guys, summer cut versus a spring cut is different. You need to accommodate these things. You need to get up early. You need to hydrate. So keep that in mind. Doesn't matter where you are in a country in the world, Steve. Summer is the US hotter than the winter. You literally have to be Arctic or the Antarctic. The rest of the time, sun's out, guns out, as they say, and think about what to do. We want you to have the best workouts of your life with Euro Pharmacies. So we want you hydrated. We want you ready to rock and roll. And if that means you've got to get up an hour earlier than normal to hit the gym while it's still cool or change gyms, you do what needs to be done, Steve. Back to you.
So let's get into Euro Pharmacies a little bit. Euro Pharmacies, they've been around a long time. I've used them plenty of times. Mobster has used them plenty of times. We've got guys who are normal gym rats, weekend warriors who use them. We got guys who go to the gym every day who use them. We got guys who are professional bodybuilders, IFBB pros, who use them. They're very well known because their products are quality. So when it comes to steroid use, we talked about it many times before, Mobster and I. If you're not using real anabolic steroids that are high quality, you are wasting your time, you're wasting your money, and you're sacrificing your health in the process. So it's very important to make sure that you always are using a legitimate brand, and Euro Pharmacies is just that. Their products, look, at the end of the day, they make their products like any other pharmaceutical company makes their products. They make their products in actual labs. They make their products with actual scientists, doctors, chemists that are making them, who are well educated, okay? And it's legal, for them to produce it. They're regulated to produce it, all right? It's different than buying steroids from the dude at the gym who's getting it from a buddy, who's getting it from a buddy, who's getting it from a buddy. You don't know where it came from. What kind of hands were touching your steroids? What kind of hands? These people, it's like going to a restaurant in a back alley and eating a meal. When was the last time? It's like going to the fair and eating food from the fair. When the last time they actually cleaned the stuff? They don't even have regulations at these fairs. Like they literally, there's no health inspector that comes and inspects these places to make sure. It's disgusting. And this is why you hear so many stories of people getting food poisoning at fairs. So you want to put something like that in your body with steroids? It doesn't make any sense.
Let me jump in very briefly, Steve, as an analogy. Like, guys, my job back in the day included chasing off, would you believe, Steve, street vendors. And I've seen carts left out in the rain and then switched on and they started cooking. The stuff has been left out all night. That's the comparison we're looking at here, guys. You want quality products from a quality company that you know is being produced under scientific conditions and has been around the industry for a long ass time. Use that analogy. If supermarkets have so many hoops they have to jump through, and they have people that come in and take stuff off the shelf and test them. The companies that they do, they have to have traceability. We have it here in the UK, Steve, where it's traced from the farm to your plate. And at every single stage, there has to be traceability of product. Literally, which chicken did the egg come from? All that kind of vibe, Steve. So what are we looking at with EuroPharmacies? That's exactly what we're looking at here. You can find in the world where the product's produced. You know that there are photographs of the building, the laboratory that is in. They have certificates of analysis, up-to-date certificates of analysis, I might add, Steve, on their website. Every couple of months, the certificates of analysis are updated. They just recently, and Steve and I was talking about this in a pre-show, evolved their website and took things in a different direction. So they aren't just sitting on their laurels. They aren't just sitting on the reviews and saying, "Oh, we're doing good enough." No, they are constantly looking to evolve. They're adding products to the website. That's exactly what you want. Now, here's the thing, guys, and I don't just say this for EuroPharmacies, but that's what we're talking about here today. When it comes to these podcasts and the evolutionary family, this is the stuff that we want, what we call an approved source. And EuroPharmacies is that high up. It's like our top one, top two choices. When Steve says about us using, I've got their products on my table while we're talking right now, Steve. I literally just yesterday stopped doing an Anavar cycle of EuroPharmacies Anavar. That's what we're talking about. That's how trusted and how Steve and I rate them so highly for this podcast. That's exactly how, when you're making choices for who to go to, that's how your choice should be made. Do you know someone that's used it? Is it produced in a laboratory? Is it high quality? Have they been around a long ass time? Do they analyze their products? Are they constantly evolving and trying to move on? That's what you want from a top rated company, just like EuroPharmacies, Steve.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, look, we're very blessed to have access to it, just a click of the mouse, to be able to get these products. They're fantastic. They know how to ship the products. They know how to do it to keep you safe, to keep themselves safe. Yeah. And they have their customers' backs always. So if you have a question, you have a concern, they'll always be there for you. But at the end of the day, look, if you want to go there and you want to buy X steroid or Y steroid, you buy them, you know what you're getting. That's the bottom line. You're not going to you're not going to order Primo and they're going to send you Deca. I mean, that's just not going to happen. So this is very, very important. So Mobster, touch on that a little bit, and then we're going to start getting into our favorite injectables for summer cutting.
Yeah, let me give you two more examples, guys. And this is exactly the sort of stuff that we concern ourselves with when it comes to buying any kind of product online, but especially when it comes to buying PEDs. Let me give you a couple of examples of things that are great about using EuroPharmacies. Number one, packaging, and Steve just touched on it. So today, and I'm touching my wooden desk as a sign of good luck here, but I don't want to shoot myself in the foot by saying it now and then having problems later on. But today, I haven't had a single item that's been sent to me by EuroPharmacies have a problem at customs so far. Every single product has arrived well packed, and I mean well packed, to the point of I've actually sent photographs and posted pictures of the packaging and how well packed it was online for guys to have a look at, and even for EuroPharmacies themselves. That's number one. Number two, they have a really, really good rep. I'm not going to name him because this podcast doesn't want to be dated, but a really, really good rep. In fact, couple of good reps, but I'm thinking of one specifically who has resolved any problems that's ever happened. And those, I'm talking about maybe one hiccup a month where someone didn't understand about how to pay, or something. The items have arrived because it was a large order. The order's been split. That's standard for the industry, but the rep is on point, Steve. So their customer service and their ability to deal with any potential issues, including just stuff where stuff's been delayed in the post and whatever else, is exactly what you want when it comes to buying PEDs. These are the things that we look for, Steve and I, and these are the things that I think customers and listeners of this show will be looking for. They want to know all the things that we've talked about already, and the customer service and the reps, and just how well packed the items are going to be. And that's how you get to become an industry leader like Euro and that's how you get to be that highly rated in industry, and indeed as a great approved source on the Evo family group of forums, Steve.
All right, so let's start off. I'm going to talk about one of their great summer cutting mixes, injectable, and then Mobster is going to tell you about an oral cutting mix that he really likes. So start off with talking about the EuroPharmacies. It's called Cutting Mix Plus 300, and it's 300 milligrams per milliliter, 10 milliliter vial, and it contains some really, really good blend here. You've got trembolone acetate, 100 milligrams. You got the masteron propionate, which is drostanolone, 100 milligrams. You got testosterone propionate, 100 milligrams. So 300 milligrams, 100 milligrams of each of the test, short ester test, short ester mass, short ester trend. And look, at the end of the day, you can dose it anywhere from 100 to 300 milligrams every other day. So it's really, really good for those of you who are looking to do a shorter cycle, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, to really transform your body on this cycle, especially if you're a good responder to testosterone and trend. You really, really will get good. And this blend this is the blend that professionals use, physique competitors especially, at the highest levels. Mr. Olympia, I guarantee you, if you took the top 10 from last year, Mr. Olympia, I guarantee you 9 of them, 9 out of 10 were taking a stack like this, which was this mix. And the reason they do it is because it works. It's great for recomposition. Recomposition is the most challenging thing about bodybuilding. Recomposition is losing body fat while gaining lean muscle mass. It's the hardest thing to do in bodybuilding. And most of you out there, I'd say 90-95% of you, all things being equal, will find it impossible to do a recomp. Okay? In most situations. The exception is if you really let yourself go. Let's say you went for a month, you stopped working out, you went and ate McDonald's and all that stuff. And then you're like, well, I'm going to get back into shape. I'm going to start training every day. I'm going to stop eating McDonald's. I'm only going to put good stuff in my body. Then you could recomp. You know what I'm saying? So if you're going from a really bad place, going back to a really good place where you were before because of muscle memory. But for most of you, all things being equal, it's going to be impossible to do that. But with this Cutting Mix Plus, even if you are someone at your plateau and you find, man, I can't lose any more body fat, I'm having a really hard time putting on any muscle, I really hit a plateau, this is a good option for you. Because if you can't recomp on this, then you're not going to be able to recomp on anything else. This is the absolute best one. That's why physique competitors absolutely love it. So Mobster, why don't you talk about, before you get into the oral, let's kind of keep this organized. Let's kind of stick to injectables. And in our next segment, you can kind of get into the cutting oral. If that's cool. Maybe tell us another injectable that you really like for cutting.
Now, I want to talk about a mix in a minute, but I want to talk about one which we discussed on the spring cutting, and I would still use this for a summer cut. And in fact, the reason why, and we're talking about Turinabol here, guys, 25 milligrams a tablet, 50 to a bag. And you're looking at a dose here, and I'm just going to throw this in while we're talking, 20 to 40 milligrams a day. Why do I like Turinabol for a summer cut? Purely and simply because you don't add loads of weight. And here's the thing, guys. Why do you not, for example, see Dianabol recommended in summer cuts. Two reasons. One, every single time I've ever taken Dynabol, Steve, I've got to put on £10. At my size now, £10 is a lot, even with my size, and I would just be sweating. And I really don't want to put on a lot of weight in the summertime. Wintertime, fine by comparison, but adding a lot of weight, and I mean weight as in water and a little bit of fat and muscle, it's just, especially if we were talking about 115 degrees, it'd be horrible. So why would I then recommend a product like Turinabol from EuroPharmacies? Because you're not putting on tons and tons of muscle. You are, as we say, looking to cut a few pounds of muscle, 3, 4 pounds, maybe 5 pounds, completely depends on the individual. I think if I was taking the dosage that I've just talked about here, Steve, I think about 3 pounds of muscle tissue, maybe 1 pound, something, a little bit of water, a little bit of fat. That's fine because I can handle that. I can deal with it. I can deal with it in the heat. So for me, Turinabol is that perfect product. I've talked about it before and I'll talk about it again. Why? What is Turinabol? What's it about? It was specifically developed by the East Germans, supported by the Eastern Europe Russians, with the idea of avoiding, at that time, it is detectable now, guys, the drug test. And what it really was doing is they didn't want the athletes that were using it to be obviously odd. So if you're already male or female, and I'll put it crudely, a big motherfucker, I don't want you turning up as my athlete with an obvious £10 gain between the last event competition and this one. Because if I'm a drug tester, if I'm the people in charge of drug tests, I'm going to drug test you. Look at them. They're £10 heavier than they was 3-4 weeks ago. So to me, you can't put on £10 that quickly. You're a high-end athlete. I'm going to drug test you. And they didn't want that. They were having problems with masculinization, especially the women. So they specifically developed this drug to add power to those particular athletes, whether it's throwing a javelin, putting a shot, whatever, discus and so on, but also not to make them look like they were absolutely crazy. So that makes it perfect for us in this example, Steve, as a product to cut. You're only going to add a little bit of muscle tissue, like I said. Your nitrogen retention sounds good. You're holding on to that muscle tissue while you are cutting, while your diet is being manipulated, while your calorific intake has been reduced. So it's perfect. I'll say it again, guys. 25 milligrams tablets. Dosaging doesn't have to be crazy high, not too much of a problem, whatever else, and 20 to 40 milligrams a day. Let me talk about one of the other orals, and this is a mix now, guys. So they do a summer cutting cycle, and it's a pre-mixed product. That's 2 steroids in the same pill, and it's a 20 milligram mix of Winstrol with a 30 milligram mix of Anavar. That's 50 milligrams a tab, 50 pills in a bag, and it's pre-done for you. Now, for me, I have always preferred to go to the lower end. And again, I'm not looking on, as this is really not for me either. I've never used Winstrol, Steve, but Anavar, I don't put on loads of weight on Anavar. For me, it's a great power. And again, maintaining my strength, which means I can still have those crazy workouts. And in fact, that's exactly what I've just been doing on some EuroPharmacies Anavar. And the Winstrol, what does Winstrol do for an awful lot of people, but dries you out? And again, that's what the appearance of being drier, the appearance of your muscles are looking drier and having that slightly grainy look. And the Anavar in here is keeping that muscle on you, keeping you strong, so the workouts are absolutely crazy. The suggested dosage in here, I would go towards the lower end of 50 milligrams a day with the single pill, but some of you might prefer to go to the higher end of 150 milligrams a day. Now, what I want to talk about when we talk about these mixes, we're going to talk about injectables shortly, is the work has been done for you. What would you normally do? You would say, I'm putting together a cycle. Steve and Stevesmi, Mobster and Stevesmi talks about Winstrol, they talks about Turinabol, they talked about. It's all in this one tablet. It's the work has been done for you. And guys, if it does nothing else, it's saving you the money. Trust me. If you were to buy Winstrol and Anavar separately, I think without looking at the price that they're charging right now, Steve, you'd be looking at another $40. It's there, it's in one pill. You can vary the dose to suit yourself individually, and they've done the work for you. Back to you, Steve, for an injector.
So let's go back to injectables and Primobolan. Now, Primobolan, I talked about a little bit earlier. You know how hard it was to find Primobolan? during the 90s and 2000s. Really downright impossible. And if you were lucky enough to come across legitimate Primobolan, it was expensive. But Euro Pharmacies, they do a really, really good job by providing access to Primobolan where it's not going to cost you, an arm and a leg to take this stuff. So what you can do with the Primobolan is you can order an entire cycle, and it's not going to cost you that much money. And the Euro Pharmacies Primobolan is a really, really good option. What you could do is run 400, 500 milligrams a week, and you can run it for 12 weeks. And you could just enjoy it with a little bit of add in a little testosterone there. You'll get some really, really good results from it. Now, another injectable that is really good from Euro Pharmacies is going to be Tren. And a lot of people, they really, really do good on Tren. So you've got trenbolone acetate, you got trenbolone enanthate, you've got Tritren available. So the Tren Ace is 100 milligram a milliliter. The trenbolone enanthate is 200 milligram a milliliter. And then you have the Tritren as well. And the Tritren is a mix of the Ace, the E, and the Hex. So it comes out to 150 milligrams total because it's 50 milligrams of each per milliliter. So in any of these situations, if you're a good responder to Tren, it can really, I've seen people even with bad diets, Mobster, absolutely just shred up on Tren because the effects it has on your metabolism, the effects it has in your body when it comes to just shredding fat. But here's a downside of Tren is summer. Like, you have to make sure that you're not a person who dehydrates easily, gets heat exhaustion easily, and your workouts are compatible with using Tren during the summer, because Tren will make you thirsty all day and all night. You'll be drinking and peeing nonstop on Tren. And it's like you can't get enough hydration when you're on Tren. So now add that to the heat of the summer, the heat of doing cardio outside and all this stuff and sweating. If you sweat while you're on Tren, you can really, really get sick, and really, really open yourself to heat stroke because of the effects it has on your heart and inflammatory things and stuff. So when it comes to Tren, please make sure that you're not doing any strenuous exercise on Tren. Make sure your workouts are more gym-based inside with the air conditioner. Do not go and work out outside, flipping tires and running at 12 o'clock, high noon. It's just not going to make sense. I went on a fishing trip one time, and I was on Tren, and I got seasick. And I was throwing up off and on for like 6 or 7 hours, no joke. We were about 15 miles offshore, and I was on Tren. My pee was brown because I was so dehydrated from that Tren. It was just nasty. So I could have killed myself in the process. So make sure you're not doing anything stupid while you're on Tren, like doing anything that's going to make you throw up, which is going to dehydrate you even more. So if you're okay with it, go for it during the summer. But if you are worried about heat exhaustion and dehydration and you live in a really hot climate, then it's probably not a good idea. So again, this is something you've got to kind of experiment with. But if you can tolerate Tren during the summer, fantastic cutter. Go for it.
Let me jump in here, Steve. Just a couple of tips for you guys, especially when it comes to Tren. I would prefer you to have some experience of the Tren already, so you know how you're dealing with it. As Steve said, I'd hate to come in with it high dose, Steve, and struggle with the Tren sweats in 115 degrees. I absolutely would. So number one tip is previous experience. Guys, know how you do with certain steroids. Number two, don't have to have the high dose so that you could accommodate well in the winter time. Half the dose. Space it out. Use a longer acting ester. Don't, for example, feel that you have to do 400, 500, 600 milligrams a week because you're a Tren freak and you love it. And that's okay in the winter time when you can manage it. But in the summertime, if it's 115 degrees, it's a whole nother level of discomfort, guys. We know that just with normal training, without PEDs, when it's absolutely crazy. So think of those kind of stuff. I've got a couple of tips for you, Steve, when it comes to that sort of thing. Guys, I know they look a bit weird. Get one of them little hand fans. Get one of those little fans that sits on the dash of your car. And one more, I mean, it's a silly little thing, Steve, and I've actually done this, especially for the super crazy training. It actually helps me with muscle cramps when I've had that for the grip stuff that I've been doing. Get one of those small hand towels, and especially if you're going to use Trend, but you can use this as a summer tip as well, Steve. Small hand towel, soak it, wring it out, put it in a bag, and stick it in the fridge. And then when you take it to the gym, and this especially applies to if you're going to use Trend, then you can put it on your neck or on your face. And Ronnie Coleman, I think, actually talked about this, and it's a super side tip for you. But again, as I said, guys, especially when you're on the Trend, it's a great recomposition drug. We know that. And as Steve said, I've seen people shred up. So some of you are going to go, I'm going to use a Trend, and that's it. So Ronnie Coleman was training in 115 degrees, and I think there's this thing on the back of our neck, Steve, that acts like human thermostat. And you get this cold, wet, chilled towel, and you put it on the back of a person's neck. And for some reason, that's that single spot with this cold towel will cool down the whole body. It almost acts, like I said, like a human thermostat, and you will cool down all over. And you see this, especially when you're in hard, crazy training. And it's going to be very, very true, like Steve said, of the champions and the competitive athletes. They're all using something like Trend, the great majority for sure. What do you see, Steve, in the heat of the summertime when the competition like the Olympics coming up in September or whatever? It's a towel-like thing with the hood up, with them soaking and them sweating. Now, obviously, they're thermogenic part of them. The heat that they're producing as they train is absolutely crazy. But you will see these cold, wet towels. It's like almost like a little secret. Same thing with soccer players, and I mean American football rather than soccer players, sitting on the sideline with the cold, wet towel draped over their heads, and especially on the backs of their necks. Guys, it's one of those little insider things that not a lot. Why do they do that? This is why they do that. So it's one of those little tricks that you can use. Now, again, like the oral cutting mix, EuroPharmacies has injectable cutting mixes. I'm just going to refer to one. They actually have, I think, 3, Steve. But this is one I'm going to refer to right now. This is Cutting Mix Plus. It is 300 milligrams a mil, 10 mil vial, EuroPharmacies Gold, and that's for the domestic market specifically. And in it, funny enough, Steve, is trenbolone acetate, 100 milligrams, dostrandolone propionate, and testosterone propionate. And that's a favorite of Steve's, of course. Let's change that, Steve, to the Rapid Cut Pro 350. And again, these are pre-mixed. I'm going to have an insider tip and technique for you as well. This is, again, trenbolone acetate, 75 milligrams, dostrandolone propionate this time, Steve, 75 milligrams, and testosterone propionate, 75 milligrams, and one more, testosterone cypionate. So it's a kind of shorter and longer acting esters. I would probably run this actually longer. For summer cutting cycles, my preference would be for 8 to 10 weeks, Steve. This, especially with the cypionate in there, I might run to 12 weeks. And I'd actually do this at the beginning of the summer so that you're right into the middle of the summer when you're looking to be in great shape. Now, insider tricks and techniques. I actually had this come up as a question and answered this just recently. The comment was, and it was to do with a cut-in product like this that's been pre-prepared by EuroPharmacies, and they said they didn't like the higher dosages. So here's the thing, guys, 2 thoughts. Number 1, dilute it. That's easy. You just find out what the oil or the carrier liquid is, and buy some of that, and mix it together in your syringe. Pull up some of the oil, pull up some of the cutting mix. It's in there, job done. And the Rapid Cut Pro 350, and you've got diluted to how you want. The other thing is, guys, don't have to do a meal every single time. There's this thing sometimes, especially with pre-prepared products. This is pre-prepared, therefore I should use it as it's been described, like 1 meal per injection twice a week, or whatever. No, guys, you can have half. You can have 3/4 of a meal. You can do exactly like that. If you don't like injecting 1 meal because it's 350, 400, 500, then don't inject half a meal. Mix it up with some oil, like I've already said. And here's the thing, guys. This is how crazy this stuff is. And sometimes I think it slips by the odd customer or so. A pre-prepared mix is always, and EuroPharmacies have done the work for you, always going to be cheaper than you buying the individual products and mixing them together in a syringe or in another vial for yourself. Every single time it's going to be less expensive, more cost effective to you as a customer. EuroPharmacies have done the work for you. You don't have to inject a meal if that's a problem. You can mix it, like I said. There's no reason for you not to do either of those things. You don't have to use it because it says that's how much is in 1 mil on the bottle. You can do it any other way. And it's not complicated. Even for you new guys, it's all it is pull it out with one syringe, inject it into, draw it up, then draw up the same amount of liquid as an oil, and boom, give it a shake, give it a minute, and you're ready to rock and roll. It's as simple as that. It sounds overcomplicated, and I get it, guys. If you're new to the game, if this is your first summer cut, it might feel a little bit complicated. But once you've been doing it as long as Steve and I have done, you go, this is not rocket science, guys. And like I said, they've done the work for you. So give Rapid Cut Pro 350 a look. It is ready to rock and roll when you are. Back to you, Steve.
So let me take it the other direction. I talked about Primo earlier. Let me go back EQ. Now, we talked about how Trend destroys cardio. It's nasty during the heat. It dehydrates you. EQ is the opposite. EQ, I actually think, is a really good option if you like to do a lot of stuff outdoors during the summer. If you like to stay active during the summer, if you're sweating outside doing cardio, you don't have to be scared of EQ. EQ doesn't make you dehydrated. EQ isn't very inflammatory compared to other anabolic steroids. It's very mild. So EQ is a really good option for those of you who want to do more cardio-based cutting, where you're burning a lot of calories via cardio. You don't have to worry about carb loading and balancing carbs throughout the day like you would with Trend. Well, EQ is much more mild. You don't even have to worry about eating while you're on EQ. It's not something that's going to cause blood sugar, cycling up and down. It's not going to mess with you. Okay. So equipoise is a really good option, 300 to 500. Some people go even higher. Professional bodybuilders, we've seen the autopsies on these guys. They've had a lot of equipoise in the system, 1,000, 2,000 milligrams even. That's not something I recommend. That's something Mobster recommends. But we're just telling you the truth. They love EQ, and these are physique competitors who love EQ. And there's a reason they love it, because it's a great one if you like to use steroids and you like to go and hit it hard at the gym. You want to go hit it hard at the gym. You want to do cardio before your workout. You want to do cardio after your workout. You want to wake up and do high intensity cardio for 15, 20 minutes in the heat and humidity of summer. The equipoise is a beautiful, beautiful option. So the way I would run equipoise, just do a little testosterone in there, 100, 150 milligrams of testosterone. And then you can go ahead and run the equipoise. You don't got to worry about an AI. And it's very mild. So that's a great option for those of you who are like me. You like to do a lot of active stuff outside, but at the same time, you're scared of that heat. You don't want to get the heat stroke and heat exhaustion. Another oral we haven't talked about yet, Winstrol. How can we not talk about Winstrol? And Winstrol is another one that physique competitors absolutely love. People who want to look cut for the summer, they absolutely love this. So Winstrol is great for cutting because it will dry you out to the bone, literally to the bone. That's why a lot of people, when they use Winstrol, and I'm not someone who has joint issues. I have short, lanky, I have short, stubby limbs. Mobster over there in the UK, in Northern Europe, you guys have more long, lanky limbs. So you guys have more joint issues with your knees and your elbows and stuff. People like me, who are more, Mediterranean background, we have more hips, maybe ankles, maybe feet, stuff like that. Those are the joints that hurt us. So, but even with me, when I ran Winstrol and I would do bicep curls, I would notice my elbows were getting really, really hard and stiff. So Winstrol is no joke, but it will dry you out to the bone. So if you're lean already and you want to get leaner, Winstrol anywhere from 25 to 50 milligrams. It's a really, really good one. You can stack it with testosterone. You can stack it with equipoise. You can stack it with pretty much every steroid out there. I don't recommend stacking it with Trend unless you're really, really experienced because of the side effects that you would get. But Winstrol does come with a lot of side effects, including head hair loss, one of the worst ones for your head hair. So that's something to think about before you use Winstrol.
Let me throw in a couple of tips here, guys. So again, you can vary the dosage. I would actually add a little bit of a fish oil. And I mean, this is a way of controlling your fats, guys, but just as a way of lubricating the joints by having a little bit of oil, a little bit of healthy fats in your diet for your joints. Using a joint product will help as well. Now, when we talk about drying out, we're talking about the physical appearance and sensation, because that's what it kind of feels like, Steve, for your muscles. So it's getting rid of that fat, the little bit of fat and water that's underneath the skin. Let me throw in another analogy for you guys. It's been said when it comes to steroids, we could probably recommend any damn steroid that EuroPharmacies produce. And under the right set of circumstances, some of you would still be able to cut, even on Dianabol. That's all you could get hold of. But why don't we recommend it? It's the difference between what's available to you and what's optimal. And how the experience of tens of thousands of users have found that Winstrol, for example, is a dryer outer, and that Dianabol, for example, is a wet drug. Now, the freaks out of you could use Dianabol and have an absolutely amazing diet and on-point cardio and still be in better condition than the rest of us average genetic type people. And I'm including myself, and I'm quite a good responder, Steve, has to be said, especially to the power type drugs and the ability to hold size and muscle, etc., etc. But even for me, I would still go with a product like Winstrol and just negate the side effects as best I possibly can. I'm lucky that I managed to hold on to some of my head here. I do get occasionally sore joints, but that's just from pounding heavy weights. I would run Winstrol. I would probably run it in the winter time, Steve, at a low dose just to see how I get on. And this is why we talk about experienced users. We talk about competition, the competitive athletes, and then the typical Joe. So the typical Joe, which would be our listener that wants to get into shape, he wants a summer cut, he's using EuroPharmacies products. That's the reason why we'd recommend Winstrol. And again, lower the dose if you have hair issues. Guys, if you've got hair issues, you don't know, just look around the rest of your family. Simple as that. If the joints are drying out, hydrate, and a little bit of healthy fats. Some of the healthier nuts, Steve, a little bit of fish oil, things like this. Just enough to take away those side effects, just enough to ease them off. So they're within the thing. You're making certain sacrifices here, guys. You're training at 6 o'clock in the morning. You're killing the cardio. You want to be in shape. It's when everybody else is still down the bar, still drinking, still eating fatty foods. You're getting up early to do this stuff. So you're only making certain sacrifices. Sometimes the very, very mild side effects that one or two people get is on that list. So I'm helping you with tips and how to negate those side effects. So vary the dose, guys. If it's a hair issue, lower the dose. If it's a joint issue, fish oils, joint products, hydration. You've got no excuse in this day and age, Steve. Just go out and get one of those crazy 5-litre, whatever the hell they are, half-gallon bottles. Guys, here's another one for you as well. And it's just one of those why people say this thing. I don't know about you, Steve, because I don't think this applies to you guys. There are some of you that have issues with, and I quote Steve, the flavor of water. It's water, guys. I know it varies from one place to the next, but it's water. You don't need sugar and whatever else. So there's little tips, especially when you're using a product like Winstrol that can dry you out and can leave you dehydrated. These are the things you can do. Steve, one more from you then.
Yeah, I want to touch back on Primo a little bit because you mentioned about side effects and head here. Yeah. Well, Primobolan, nice thing about Primobolan, even though it's a DHT derivative like Winstrol, if you're worried about your head here and you're worried about joints, you can just switch over to Primobolan. And EuroPharmacies has two really good Primobolan options, and I'll go over them here. They have the Primobolan Depot, which is methanolone enanthate, 100 milligram a milliliter for 10 milliliters. And that's a enanthate ester, so it's a little longer. But they also have one here, and a lot of you are going to really love this one. They have the Primobolan acetate. So it's a methanolone acetate, 50 milligram per milliliter. And this one you'd want to basically, because it's such a small amount, only 50 milligram milliliter, you want to dose it like every day. So you would dose the 1 or 2 cc's every day if you wanted a short-acting ester, but it'll work a lot quicker. But my point is, with Primobolan, you'll still get some of those benefits of a DHT derivative, but you won't get the issues with head hair. You won't get the issues with joints. You won't get the issues with the other androgenic side effects, the more strong anabolic side effects that you would get from something like Winstrol, which is also a DHT derivative. So that is an option for you as well It's just a matter of, what you're specifically looking for, and try both. Try using Winstrol yourself. Give it a shot. There's no rule that you have to start taking a steroid. And if it's not working out for you, that you have to, you know what? I said I'm going to do it for 6 weeks. I'm just going to keep going 6 weeks. No, there's no rule. You can stop taking it. If after a couple of weeks, your hair is falling out and you've got joint issues, then stop taking it. It's just not going to work for you. So try Primobolan instead. Maybe you'll like Primobolan, maybe you'll not like Primobolan. It is a very mild steroid, and a lot of people don't like Primo. They're like, why am I spending a lot of money on Primo when I can use Tren? And Tren gives me a lot more results. So it just depends. You got to experiment with these guys. There's no right or wrong answer. We are just giving you some ideas to try. But at the end of the day, everyone is going to be different. And what your opinion is now could change in a year, could change in 5 years, could change in 10 years. 10 years ago, if you came to me and said, Steve, what's your favorite steroid? I would have said Tren. But now, if you ask me my favorite steroid, it's going to be Equipoise. 10 years from now, it could be Anavar. I don't know. So we're going to change, especially as your goals change, and you'll start noticing these steroids work. So these are all ideas, but the point is, these are all great options from EuroPharmacies. These are all great options for summer cutting. And some of you are going to really, really be impressed with the results that you get on this. So give them a shot and come on the forum and let us know how they did for you. So Mobster touched on that a bit, and then we're going to talk about diet and training for summer.
So like Steve said, and I'll say something that I said earlier on, Steve. In fact, I've just looked at another option, guys. This is lean mass, which is testosterone. So you can look at the SARMs, you can look at the peptides. Honestly, EuroPharmacies has every single thing that you need, whether it's a SARM, a peptide, a steroid, orals, or injectables. They got every single thing. And some of these things are specifically designed and prepared just to add lean mass, just to get you cut for the spring, just to get you cut for the summer. And they've even got variations on the dosages there. Again, lean mass, testosterone, RAD 140, 10 milligram tablets, 50 tablets, 10 to 40 milligrams a day. And again, they've actually got this as part of a bulking thing. I wouldn't use it as a bulker. I would use the lower dose just to add a little bit of mean muscle tissue, or just to hold on to muscle tissue. Now I'll expand on something that we talked about earlier on that Steve just mentioned again. So what do we do, guys? And this is nature versus us, because we have available to us now, and Steve and I talked this on another podcast, more food, more exotic food than we've ever had in history. We fly stuff over an airplane, Steve. Never mind bringing it in half ripened ships, chilled away in the hold of a shipping container on some ship or whatever else, Steve. But we have a greater accessibility to fruits and vegetables from all over the world than we've ever had. So what is it? And I'm old enough to remember this, and I think Steve's just on the cusp. We ate, normally, I don't just talk about a couple of 100 years ago, Steve, we ate certain foods in the wintertime, and we ate different diets in the summer. That was because of availability of food. But also, if you think about it, guys, and this is what I talk about when I say we're working with nature. Why do we eat more fruits? Well, because fruits hydrate. Now, they don't have to be especially filling. Strawberries, for example, is a very light fruit, like I mentioned at the beginning, Steve. I would actually say eating an orange or similar, or a grapefruit, would probably fill me up more. So it's one of those things. Why do we have more salads in the summertime? Because they're refreshing. And the sheer volume of food that you would have to eat, if I decided I was going to have in cucumbers, lettuce, and tomatoes, Steve, it'd have to be something ridiculous to replace a wintertime bowl of pasta. But it's also because our bodies naturally get leaner in the summertime. Trust me, if you're fat in the wintertime, it's not so bad. It's a layer of insulation. If you're fat or you're carrying a little bit of fat in the summertime, it's hard work, guys. It just is. And I say that from my own perspective, never mind how Steve feels about it. It's just nature. So it's normal for us, and this is how we work and how you can make your summer cut more successful, to switch over to summer type eating. That's not even being on a diet, Steve. It's just eating the fruits and the vegetables and the food that's available to you that's summer focused. So what fruit comes out in the summertime, what's available in the markets, especially if it's locally grown. Steve's touched on this on another podcast. If it's organic, if it's local, if it's only traveled a few miles from the farm to the shop, it's going to be locally grown, it's going to be fresh, and it's going to be summer fruits. It will not be something that's only available in the winter time. It'll be better for you, and therefore it's going to make your diet more successful. Now, in this day and age, guys, you've got no excuse when it comes to calorie counting, no excuse when it comes to certain foods. There are apps, there are online food calculators that can help you put this thing together. My local gym owner, honestly, Steve, people go to him for training advice and PED advice, but I actually think his area of expertise, he is amazing when it comes to diets. And I know that you do this for clients and people on the forums. Steve is kind of an expert on this too. And here's another thing, probably easier with Steve's area of expertise with fasting. I would actually say for fasting, it's easier in the summertime. So you do these things and you work with what's available to you in the summertime, not something that's been flown in on the plane like an avocado from Brazil or something like that, but something that's local, something that's refreshing, something that's hydrated, because that's how you're supposed to eat in the summertime, and because it's going to make your diet easier and it's going to make your summer cut easier. What do you think about the food, Steve, and the diet specific?
Yeah, and there's a reason, melon seasons during the summer because that's when it's in season. So really difficult to find a good watermelon during the winter. It's just not something that's grown that time of year. So look, cycling our foods throughout the year is something that's in our DNA. We evolved doing it. The reason we can see colors is because fruit was the first thing we ever ate. So we evolved eating fruit. It's in every religious book out there from every different thousands of religions, right? They always mention fruit in the book. So we know that our ancestors, that was what they really, really went after, was fruit. And look, it was in season. Certain fruits were in season certain times of the year. So it was very important to eat as local as possible and eat as more fresh as possible. If it's ripe right off the tree, that's the most ideal you want to eat. But obviously, it's not possible for many of us, as Mobster said, it gets shipped in. And the more fresh it is, the better it's going to taste, the better it is going to be for you. If it's shipped in unripened and ripens on the boat or ripens on the plane or ripens on the truck and gets to you, then it's not going to be that good. So listen, at the end of the day, summertime, high water content fruits are going to be what hydrate you. Watermelon, cantaloupe, honeydew, these are great options. Tropical fruits are great options. They're very, very good for you, and they're in season during the summer. Yeah, so I mean, at the end of the day, cycling your fruits throughout the year is a wonderful thing, and your body will really appreciate it. And take advantage of the summer. And that's really good. High water content foods can help you hydrate, cool you down. Like a watermelon during the heat of summer is classic. It's a classic barbecue food in America, watermelon, because it cools you down. After you have a meal, you have some watermelon that hydrates you, it cools you down. Watermelon is like 98% water, and then the rest of it is fiber. And then all the sugars that are in there is all natural sugars. They're slow to hit your body. So it's not like it's not like watermelon is eating cake or ice cream here. It's really good for you. It's good for your digestion. It's a lot of fiber. It's a lot of water. So these are really good options for the summer, is these fruits. So go crazy on the fruits, especially if you're using Trend, go crazy on the fruits. You won't go wrong with that. Mobster, touch to that and get into the training a little bit during the summer. We really want to hear about that.
I'm just thinking, Steve, of a few years ago, I was over in Turkey and we had days when it was 30, 40, and 50 degrees. 50 degrees, guys, is 130, I believe, Fahrenheit. It was absolutely crazy, Steve. So what did we have for breakfast over there? It was great big slices of beef tomato, lots of slices of lemon, a little bit of sort of toast, and a huge, great mug of Turkish coffee. And I would spend the day on holiday. If I had a beer, I'd have a glass of water, and I spent most of the hottest days with a hat on in a swimming pool. So that leads me into that's what you eating when it's crazy, crazy hot, and I'm not in training for dieting or nothing. That's just what we had to hydrate us. First, that was our breakfast, Steve. That was our start to the day. No eggs, no bacon, just these fruits to hydrate us. Literally, the moment we got up, that's what we're hitting before we go anywhere, do anything. So you're working with what's available and around you, normally in nature in the summer, and it's a perfect time to be eating that stuff if you're on a summer cut. You're in your EuroPharmacies products. What about training? I've just touched on one of those, Steve. I can't swim properly to save my life, but I'm tall enough that I can get in most swimming pools and I can paddle around with the best. And where are we going to go in the summertime, guys? What do you see people doing in the summertime? Now, you can hit the gym because we love the gym. And I don't think there's a listener listening to this podcast right now that doesn't train with weights or on the machines to get into shape. But what we can also do is we can add to that. I've got no real great skills. It has to be said, but I'll knock a ball around with the next person, whether it's badminton or tennis, any of that stuff. Beach volleyball, Steve. I couldn't play that at any competitive level to save my life, but I would have a go on the beach. I'll kick a football around on the beach. Why do we do those things in the summertime? First off, guys, especially you younger listeners, you're going to be showing off to the opposite sex, male, female, trans. I don't care. You're going to be showing off. You're going to want to attract yourself a mate. That's just how it is. So you're running up and down the beach with your six-pack, which you're working on right now with our summer camp. You're going to be more, especially youngers, physically active. You just are. And that's even with the crazy levels of heat. So that might be, if it gets 40 or 50 degrees, Steve, that might be when you sit under the umbrella and don't move. Trust me, guys, even when you're doing that, when it's that goddamn hot, you're sweating and you are burning calories just sitting there. But when it's a little bit cooler, when it's in the mid-20s, early 30s, Steve, you will be running around on the beach. You'll be kicking the ball about. You're more likely to go in the swimming pool. And this is above and beyond what you would normally do. It just is. If I go out for a walk, and I regularly trail walk, as Steve knows, get up in the hills and the mountains nearby, just locally, I get a certain amount of steps every single day. I've mentioned it on podcasts. I will do more in the summer. It's that much easier. It's that much nicer. You go for a walk around lakes, go to the seaside. We get up early. My girlfriend and I would get up early on those days and get there before anybody else. Get there at 9 o'clock in the morning, Steve. Whenever we're still having their Sunday coffee, we're already on the beach and go for a walk along the beach. So we double up on our steps on those days. It's that much easier. So if you're trying to do a summer cut, just do more activities. Go early to the gym like we talked about at the beginning, when it's cool or cooler, hydrate more, eat those fresh fruits like we said, and do more stuff. Steve, what's your favorite things to do when it's absolutely crazy hot? Do you do stuff like I'm talking about on the beach to get into shape?
Dude, let me tell you something. When it's really hot, sit inside. So basically, sunrise, sunset, you can go outdoors, but in the middle of the day, sit inside. I'll go to the beach in the evenings when it's when it cools down a little bit. But man, it is so hot in the middle of summer. It is absolutely brutal. So yeah, man, that's air condition is your friend during the summer. We're just not designed as human beings to be in these kind of hot climates. I mean, if our ancestors, 100,000 years ago or a million years ago, it would have been this hot as it is now with climate change going on. What would we be doing? We would be nomading. We would be migrating to cooler climates. So it's absolutely brutal. So that's why a lot of people, snowbirds, they come down south during the winter, and then what do they do the rest of the year? They go back north. So that's what I would be doing. So absolutely stay away from the sun. If you go to the beach in the middle of the day and you go swimming, expect heat stroke because you're getting the reflection off the water, you're getting reflection off the sand. You're going to get sunburned. You're going to get a lot of heat stroke. So be really careful about that. So if you want to go swimming, that's what I like to do. Like go swimming around 6, 7 o'clock when it starts cooling down a little bit, or after it rains. That would be the best option for me. So just be careful with your training, especially in America during our miserable summers, and keep your air conditioner working good. You know what I'm saying? So any final tips, Mobster? And then you can take us to the disclaimer.
Quick tip then, guys. Bearing in mind, I kind of disagree with Steve, but then I'm not training in 115 degrees. It's one more tip, and it sounds really, really silly, Steve, but bearing in mind what you just said about 115 degrees and the absolute heat of the day, I've actually done in that Turkey when I was doing the 40 and 50 degrees centigrade stuff there, Steve, and it was like 130 degrees Fahrenheit on one particular day. We did exactly what you said. We went for a walk in the evening, and it was late, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock before the sun was going down. So that's when we did our steps. We couldn't go to sleep because it was so goddamn hot. So we actually went out and walked up and down the beach and got our steps in the night time when it was actually kind of less than 30 degrees. So the other tip is buy a hat. It's one of those silly things, Steve. And the thing that I mentioned earlier on with the cold wet towel, you can do that with a hat. Buy one of them floppy, soft cotton hats that has the brim on it and soak that bitch. Pour water on it, but put icy water on it, and then put that thing on your hat, Steve. Then you can maybe, bearing in mind what Steve said, that's when I'd maybe go in the early part of the evening when it's still super hot, still 100 degrees, and over that cold, icy, wet hat on my head, go and try and get some of my steps in. And obviously, guys, I like to get a tan on, but slap the factor 50 on, and keep that sunburns off, especially on your shoulders and stuff. Guys, ultimately, you're looking to use Euro Pharmacies to get into goddamn shape. So we're giving you some ideas on how to train, ideas on how to heat, how to avoid heat stroke, God help us, plenty of hydration all the time, guys, and when to train, how to train in this heat, how to hydrate, everything. And hopefully, fingers crossed, guys, if you go out and you do the work and you use Euro Pharmacies as your PEDs of choice, you should do what needs to be done and you should get in a great shape. If you do, come on to the forums, post pictures of what you did, your EuroPharmacies journey. I want to see some summer physiques on the forums. I want to see some cut physiques. Please note, we are not doctors and the opinions are ours. It's our view and based on our experience and views on the topic. A podcast for informational purposes and entertainment only. The freedom of speech and the First Amendment applies.